To adjust the output size of the jaw, first loosen the lock nuts and bolts on the sides. These bolts go through the center of the P-shaped shim that hold them in place. Next, loosen the spring nut about 5 turns. This relieves some of the pressure required to open the gap for the shim plates. Next, tighten the center screw. This pushes the jaw away from the back plate and shims to release the pressure and allow for easy shim removal. You may have to tighten further if adding plates to create a gap large enough to accommodate the wider plates. Now the shim should easily slide in or out. Add or remove plates as desired. Then replace the side bolts. When replacing these, jiggle the shims to be sure you have gone through the hole and into the threads in the plate behind the shims. Next, loosen the center screw completely to allow the jaw to rest back on the shim plates. It is very important that the center screw has no pressure on it when running the crusher, as damage to the bolt and housing can result if the jaw plate is resting on this bolt. The bolt can even be loose to the touch, the main point being it is no longer touching the jaw plate. Once the center bolt is completely loose, then tighten the lock nuts on the shim plate bolts to keep these from backing out. Next, tighten the inside nut on the spring back to medium tension. This ensures there is no clapping and holds the jaw tightly against the shims during operation. It also ensures that the toggle plate stays in place, which is crucial. Test while the jaw is running to be sure the spring is tight enough and there is no clapping of the jaw plate. If there is clapping, tighten until clapping stops. Once you have gotten to the point where there is no clapping, tighten the outside spring nut, locking it in place so it does not back off. It is very important to understand the jaw plate working principle. There is a horizontal toggle plate that the jaw plate rests on. It is there to protect the jaw plate if it receives too much pressure, which can result in significant damage to the plate and housing. This toggle plate will break in that case and is easily replaced. The toggle plate is a safety mechanism against this possible damage. If the spring is not tight enough, there is a possibility the toggle plate can fall off the shelf or lip that it rests on. You can see both ends of the toggle plate and the channel and the shelf where each end rests through the holes in the sides of the jaw housing to ensure it's properly placed. Never ever run the jaws if you hear them hitting each other or any other metal on metal clanking. Severe damage to the machine can occur. You can move the flywheel through one revolution by hand to be sure this is not the case, being careful to keep hands and fingers clear when doing so. If you hear them touching even after that when running, the spring needs to be tightened as the jaw plate has too much play and is bouncing on the throw of the plate forward. If the toggle plate has fallen off its correct placement, simply loosen the spring and pry it back from the sides or reach down through the gap behind the top of the plate with a hook bar. There is a hole in the middle of the toggle plate that you can hook it by. Move the flywheel by hand so the jaw gap is the smallest, which opens the gap for the toggle plate behind the jaw plate to its widest, to get the toggle plate back in place. After the toggle plate is back in place, hold it there and rotate the flywheels until the jaw gap is wide open, which will hold the toggle plate in place until you tighten the spring back. Tighten the spring until it holds the toggle plate back in place on its shelf on both ends. If there is ever a question on if you have done these procedures correctly, call us to be sure rather than risk damage to your crusher. That is what we are here for.